Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you in another video. All right, so I wanted to talk about the Charlotte Hornets today. Obviously, there is not a whole lot going on in the NBA, but the Charlotte Hornets did give us a little bit of news because Michael Jordan just completed the sale of the team to a group led by Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall. I hope I pronounced the names correctly. J. Cole is in there as well. Um, and it's just going to be a new day in Charlotte. They got a lot of good assets, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with their roster. Now, we've talked about the Utah Jazz as of late, and they have a lot of players that are playing the same position that should probably have bigger roles. Not going to happen um, there. They're going to have to probably do some addition by subtraction. And I look at this team as another team with the same circumstance, which is why they were so intriguing to me. They have a lot of what other teams should want, and they should be willing to part ways with some of it to create space for some of the up and coming young players that they have here uh, on this roster. So let's take a look at what I'm looking at. First of all, news. There seems to be a stalemate with PJ Washington and the team. That shouldn't surprise anybody who follows me. I didn't think Charlotte was. I didn't think Washington was going back there. I didn't think most of the free agents that they had were headed back there. They also got Kelly Oubre that they could resign. I don't expect either one of those guys to resign with the Hornets. I just feel like the Hornets again need to probably let go of some guys rather than bringing anybody back. PJ was a big part of what it is they did. Kelly as well when he was healthy, but they got Williams in place now. They got James Najee in place now. JT Thor is on a two-way, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, they don't need any extra help in the front court. Nick Richards is obviously still in place. So all of those guys are going to need minutes if they're going to fully develop. You got uh, Miles Bridges returning. So I don't know if Kelly Oubre and PJ Washington would still have the same usage, and I don't think you want to pay them their salary because of it, unless you plan on moving on from some of those other guys. Um, so that's really the issue there. Big Mark Williams is somebody I'm definitely paying attention to. So much size, so much energy with that size, runs the floor well. Gonna have to deal with that dude. And as he develops, you got James Najee right next to him. I don't know if the front court is big enough for the both of them, but those are powerful men you're gonna have to deal with for sure in the Eastern Conference. Charlotte is not to be messed with as it pertains to being able to throw size at the field. Um, and then they got nice young guards. Amari Bailey, who's really, really feisty on the defensive end. Offensively can put together some buckets as well. Obviously, LaMelo Ball just signed his 260 5-year deal. Superstar. He's going to continue to lead this franchise. He's the face of the franchise. You got a young fella like James Bouknight in place who's also really talented, looking for an opportunity to show exactly what it all he can do out there at the point guard position. And as I said, more point guards. Nick Smith Jr., another high-level point guard they picked up in the draft that I really liked. Did some good things in the summer league, showed that he's fully healed from that injury. Svi Mykhailiuk is another guy that I like a lot, somebody that they had last year. Laker draft pick who can do some good things as a role player off their bench. Theo Maledon, in that same vein, is also somebody who can do some good things as a point guard off the bench. So they have too many point guards. You look obviously at Terry Rozier, who's on this team at 22 mil for the next 3 years, which isn't a bad contract for who he is at this point, but it was a terrible contract when he signed it. So that's probably a more attractive contract right now than it's ever been, even though it does still have some length on it. He's still a player who can help a team. I would be shopping him all over the league at this point, along with the expiring contract of uh, Gordon Hayward. I did not know Gordon Hayward's contract was expiring at this point until about 5 minutes ago, and now that I know that, I can look at it differently. Because when you have an expiring contract, now the urgency is to not necessarily keep it, because you can have some value getting back pieces in return that maybe you would want for the long term. If you don't have any interest in using that cap space for any reason next year when that expires, you can give it to another team and get back some stuff. Maybe even some draft equity, depending on what that team's interest is. I don't think that he's going to garner you draft equity in most situations, but it doesn't hurt to see if an expiring contract on a high-level player like Gordon Hayward wouldn't be something a team like San Antonio would want to kick the tire on or something like that. Maybe they would be interested. Um, So that's the type of thing that I would be trying to figure out if I could do if I'm the Charlotte Hornets. You got nice players like Kai Jones and JT Thor, long power forward like guys who can block shots and do all kinds of stuff uh, above the rim. You like that tandem of players. I think JT's on a two-way, but I think they're trying to work him into the equation. I really like him for their franchise. Um, I think Kai Jones is up for a breakout if he can just get the role. That's why you kind of want PJ and Kelly to find new homes so that you can get a guy like Kai Jones an opportunity to really show that he's gotten some development in over the time of being in the league with this team. And the thing about it is Charlotte has already shown me by way of my Lakers receiving Malik Monk that they don't really get the most out of everybody. Maybe you can grab one of their guys and get more out of them. And I just think that that's imminent when you talk about some of the players and the roles on this team. A guy like James Bouknight, you know dang well that's going to be the case. You put Bouknight in the Clipperland or something like that, he's going to take off. There's no question about it. You just got to find a guy like that into an opportunity where he can really show what he can do. And I just don't know where I would find that with Terry Rozier, Nick Smith, Amari Bailey, LaMelo Ball, all these guys are guards. How do I find time for a Bouknight to play? And I didn't even mention the second overall pick in the draft, Brandon Miller, who's most definitely going to push people for small forward minutes. Him, Bridges, Hayward. It's going to be a push to see who can get the starting job to start the season. Obviously, one would think Miller would be the guy that would be in front for that. But Bridges coming back puts a lot of pressure on guys, particularly the coach, try to figure out how to sort the minutes out, how to find ways to get the most out of these young fellas in rotation. But I'm telling you, the size that this team has and the ability to stretch the floor now that Miller is in place, Ball is obviously fully where he needs to be, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, they can shoot, man. They have a shooting ability that is now in place that is going to put some pressure on the Eastern Conference. I look at a guy like Miles Bridges. If he comes back the same player he was before everything went down, I think people forget just how good he was playing on both sides of the floor. He was practically an all-star. In fact, it was kind of egregious that he didn't make an all-star team that year. The issue was he was looking to get paid. And he was offended by the fact that Mike hadn't given him an extension. And he went out there and proved that he was that guy. And I'm telling you, I had him on only one fantasy team at all. I owned probably 30 fantasy teams that season. And I only had him on one team. And that team did great all year long, and he was a major part of that. What went wrong was the off-the-court stuff. And it took him away from the game for a year. But the last time we saw him on the floor, he was at his best, and he was one of the best players on both sides of the floor that year. So that's who they're getting back. And the second pick in the draft with Miller, who also plays defense. And Ball's coming back healthy. So this is a team that I think can make a massive jump. Not just a little. No, this team could be one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference because they're getting in so much talent. Some of the guys that they've had are shifting into being able to understand being pros. You know, a guy like Williams, second year, Kai Jones, year 3, I believe it is. Nick Richards had a breakout last year, so you expect a lot from him this year. So it's like these guys are just getting 1 year older. Bouknight, obviously a year in, 2 years in, rather. You just expect they're going to be able to help you. And then you look at the insertion of Amari Bailey and just how much of a hound he is defensively, how physical he can be defensively. I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the floor as well. So that's just going to be the thing for their coach. It's going to be difficult to find the right rotations and to keep continuity with all of these guys that are more than capable of doing more than you're actually going to be able to allow them to do. So addition by subtraction, man, that needs to be the story there. And if they do that, I think this could be one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. I just love the idea of having Williams and Najee on the same team when you consider what other teams are putting together, like Detroit, Orlando, and all these big teams that are coming together in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, all these teams have massive centers. I like that Charlotte's keeping that going. They don't want to be left out of that. And so I think that they're very much a team that you could see being able to match up well with big teams. Um, Depending on how big of a jump Miller, not jump, but how big of a rookie season Miller has, coupled with how healthy you expect Ball to be, um, I think this team could be really good, man. I really do. I think this team is as loaded as anybody in the Eastern Conference, really, when you consider what they have from top to bottom. They just got to find a way to take all of that value and condense it into something that can have roles that make sense for the players that they are. And right now, you just got too many Chiefs and not enough role players to really fall in line, be comfortable with those roles. And in Charlotte, that's not the environment you want those problems, if you ask me. Removing Terry Rozier's contract should be priority number one. There's nothing more important than getting rid of that. And like I said, at $22 million a year, at this point, when you're seeing what guys are signing for, it's not a bad contract anymore. So that's where that comes down to. Somebody should be willing to take that from Mitch Kupchak at this point. And if they're not willing to move it, there's something wrong there. I think Nick Richards' contract is one of the best I've seen, man. 3 years, $5 million a year for a player who played as well as he did last year. If I'm his representation, I'm going to need an extension on that, or I'm going to need some type of restructuring on that if he has a breakout this year. Now, I don't know if I want to play him more than $5 million this year, just in case last year was a fluke. But if he continues to play the way he played last year, he's more than a $5 million player to me. So that's just something I paid attention to. I don't know that he can demand that yet. But if you play close attention to how he was playing last year, he was really, really good with the role given. So I expect for him to make for a good bench unit for the Charlotte Hornets if he doesn't make the starting team. The point is, whatever they put together, it's going to be a nice first unit and a nice second unit wave coming at you with the Hornets. So that's what I like, is the depth here. There's no question you got dynamic guards coming at you 24/7 no matter what. With Smith, Bailey, and Ball and Bouknight on the floor together, there's no question they got great guard play. And then even further back, like Theo Maledon is a guy in that situation, very good. You know what I mean? When you got him being like your seventh guard, heck yeah, that's a strong team. So I just like the depth everywhere. It might be a little too much depth, but it's definitely plenty of it. Cody Martin, obviously Caleb's brother. We know of Caleb in the finals with the Heat, had a great playoffs. I think his Eastern Conference Finals series was his best. I think that's why I went. I didn't pay as close attention to the Heat as I should have, but one would think, hey man, they're twin brothers, grew up playing with one another, same height, same weight, same everything. You would think Cody should be able to have a little bit of that fire in him too. There's no reason to think that Cody can't play as well. So that's somebody who you look at and your eyes kind of light up like, oh, that's the other one, huh? Let's see what he can do this year, what's there. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't mind trading for him if I'm a team that has a role to give him, just to get the other one. Never know. So if I'm Cleveland or somebody, I'll make a call for Cody Martin. Why not? Bryce McGowan's I'm not familiar with, but that's another forward they have on his team. Leaky Black is a guy who has a fantastic name, and from what I understand, he could play a little bit of forward that they picked up as well in the draft. Kobe Simmons is someone I'm also not familiar with, but again, this is what they have. They have a lot of players on this team that are going to need roles so they can prove whoever they are and make names for themselves, and I just don't know those opportunities are there at all. But their front 10 are all players I would love to see in rotation somewhere. So all these dudes: Williams, Bailey, Ball, Bouknight, Bridges, Miller, Jones, Hayward, Richards, Rozier, Smith, Thor, Najee, Svi, Maledon, Black. All of these dudes can play, all of them. So for me, it's like, all right, if we didn't even mention Oubre and PJ, if they happen to bring those guys back, this is a very, very talented basketball team right now. So that's what happens when you draft well. And they drafted very well this past draft, even though I hated that they took guards when they didn't need them. When you look at the fullness of what they can choose from now, they got more talented guards from which to choose from. So if they do shave guards, they're not losing no talent, and that is ultimately a very good problem to have. So that's what I got to say about the Charlotte Hornets, really. I'm very intrigued by the athleticism that Bridges is going to be returning with the size of a Williams. I don't know if Williams' three-point shot exists at all. I have no idea if he would be able to stretch the floor, but if so, you could definitely feel good about him going forward. As a starting center for them, James Najee is a guy who's a bit more limited with his skill set, but he's powerful athletic, defensive minded, rebounding minded. So he's gonna push him for minutes. Uh, and I just love the idea. Like I said, Kai Jones and his length, uh, coupled with that, the Bridges' defensive ability, Miller defensive ability, uh, LaMelo coming back. I expect him to make an All-Star team this year, take a nice step forward so long as the health continues to stay where it needs to be. Hopefully he's not going to have those issues. Um, and as I said, with Gordon Hayward expiring, I look at his contract just like I've been mentioning with Tobias Harris in Philly. Now that those contracts are finally on their expiring year, you keep an eye on them to be traded at the deadline. Maybe not at the beginning of the season, but you probably don't want those guys to just walk if you can get something for them. And I think a guy like Gordon Hayward, like I said, San Antonio, there's a few teams that may be interested in Gordon Hayward's services, including maybe his old team, the Utah Jazz. Maybe you can go back there. I don't know if they want to take that salary. I have no idea, but just certain things that you could consider now that he's expiring at $31 million. Maybe the Miami Heat would be willing to kind of swap that contract for something. I don't know. Whatever. Point is, you want to move Gordon Hayward at the deadline as an expiring contract, and you want to move Terry Rozier if just to create space for other guards. That's it, and to get rid of that salary. You don't need it. That's what it comes down to with Terry Rozier. With all these guards, you just don't need that player in place eating up any of your cap at all. So if I were Mitch Kupchak, that would be the next move. We're trading that before the season even starts. It's not going to be on my team. Great guy to have. No, don't get it twisted. It's not like I'm down on Terry Rozier. There are good spots for him to go to at $22 million. I can think of like Toronto right now. They could use a point guard for him to come down there and take that spot. Would be a solid situation right now, even though they just played $14 million a year for Dennis Schroeder. DS is my guy. Got all the love for DS, but he's not a starting point guard in my mind. So Terry Rozier would push him for those minutes, and I think he would make a little more sense as your starting guard in Toronto. But that's a lot of money to be going to guys, neither one of them who might be that guy in Toronto. So I'm just kind of going too far. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to find a landing spot for Terry Rozier. Toronto may not be the best spot for him salary-wise for them, but I do like him going to a leading role spot. Maybe even the Clippers, if they can create a way to create salary for themselves, get that Morris contract out of there, because I'm surely not taking it back if I'm Charlotte, but have that move and then bring in Rozier. That makes a lot of sense to me to help their team if they want to stay on that timeline. So the point is, Terry Rozier should have some suitors. I look over there in Minnesota. They could use a Terry Rozier, even though the salary could be a little iffy. You know, I like Mike Conley in Minnesota, but he's getting a little old. Maybe you can kind of replace that contract with Terry Rozier. Obviously, once again, I'm not taking that back in Charlotte, but again, we'll find a third team for that. Point is, I'm going to find somewhere to get Terry. He's gone if I'm Charlotte. We ain't going to be going into this season with this log jam, with these guards, that young fellas that need the ball. And then Lonzo Ball, who's going to have the ball. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. Or you can just do like I always say and trade some of the youngsters. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trading Amari Bailey. I'm not trading James Bouknight. Obviously, I'm not trading Ball. And I'm not trading Nick Smith. So that's really what it is. Those four are going to be on the team if I'm running things. I'm not trading none of them. So that's how I feel if I'm Charlotte. Those are the four I choose. And we can move Hayward, we can move Svi, we can move Theo, we can move everybody else. But those are the four that remain in Charlotte if I'm serious about winning. Bridges is a real thing. Here's the thing. That's an expiring contract as well, just like you look at Gordon Hayward. Because they only brought Bridges in for a 1-year deal. And the reality is, it's a tryout year because they don't know where his head is. They don't know if he's coming back the same guy. And they don't know if they want to pay that guy, because that was the issue then. You know, even before the problems, that was the problem. But it's new ownership. He is a talented, electrifying player. And I don't know that they don't trade him at the deadline because they probably won't re-sign him. And if that's the case, he could be a very valuable player if he plays like he's been playing, as we've already said. So I didn't take a look at the contract that he signed for. I think it's only like $7 million expiring, obviously. I don't know that Miles Bridges stays on this team the full year. I don't know that they look to re-sign him next year. So that's something that we keep an eye on. There's no feel for that right now. We have to see how he plays. That's going to tell the story. How mature he is in the locker room this year. That'll tell the story. But that's something to definitely keep an eye on. There's no guarantee that he's going to be on this team come the trade deadline. So that's something to be mindful of. Although I like them better with him on the team, no question. For what that's worth, so long as he's coming back the same guy. So that's what that is. Yeah, man, that's what I see there. Hopefully they can get an opportunity to kind of develop some of these dudes, because that's really what the story's got to be in Charlotte, is the player development. If you're not turning these high-level guards into what they're supposed to be, you probably should get rid of them early. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, you don't want them to just kind of turn into role players, guys that are not going to get the most out of themselves, and then you try to trade them for something 3 years from now and they ain't worth crap. This happens a lot with names like this if they don't develop to start properly. So let's learn. Let's learn from old mistakes from not only Charlotte Hornets but other teams who've done this with guards. Don't let them just dwindle to nothing on your team. If you don't have the role for them, ship them. Ship them somewhere where you can do that, where they can play rather. So that's what I think in regards to the Charlotte Hornets. Addition by subtraction, a trade must be made. I feel the same way about the Jazz, as I've already stated. There are certain teams in this league right now that if they don't make trades, what they have is going to lose value. Some of those kids are going to lose confidence, and they are going to turn into role players when their projections from this point right now could be starters or stars or even better. You don't want that. You want them to keep them here. You trade them at this level, because once they get here, it's very hard to get them back to here when you don't have the roles, and other players are just going to continue to ascend. Like I said, Ball's already in place, so you got one guard. The rest of these guys are career backups at best if they can't win that shooting guard position. And with Miller in place, there's no guarantee they're going to win the shooting position. So that's why I'm looking at the rest of these guards. The ones I want to keep, I'm shaving off opportunities for them to have games where they're going to get 30-minute rolls. Somebody's going to roll an ankle. They're going to be on the floor for 40 minutes in certain games. We're going to see them be their best, and I'm going to trade them at that level. So that's how I think. I'm not sure I can build a champion this way, but these guys can be traded at cost for something that I can believe in as a champion someday. And so that's what they have, a lot of valuable stuff, so long as they don't let it lose value in their uniform. So that is the fullness of my Charlotte Hornet thought. I'm glad that the NBA has so much to talk about, even though we just have to find those topics. If you break down these teams, you can really look at what they have and give yourself 20 minutes to speak on this thing. So that's what I've done here. I'm sure there's more to say. I don't watch this team at all. I'm a Laker fan in LA, so I don't get to see the Charlotte Hornets very much, but I do pay attention to rosters, and I'm very interested in this particular one. So that's what I got, man. Good luck to all the Hornet fans. I thank you all for watching BDF 44.